Welcome to StreetSmart Live. I'm Gordon Holmes, your host today, and excited to bring you a very interesting story called Royal Helium. But before I introduce today's CEO, let's take a look at the disclosures. All right. It's with great pleasure to introduce you to Andrew Davidson, CEO of Royal Helium. Andrew, welcome aboard.
Well, thanks, Gordon, and thanks for taking the time to meet with us today. We've got an interesting story here developing in Saskatchewan that I'm excited to talk about, and have brought with me a few guests who are experts in various things as they relate to junior resource stocks and Royal Helium specifically. With no further ado, I'll make some introductions. First on our list is Mr. Campbell Becher. He's a capital market specialist and president of the Becher family office based in Toronto. Thanks for joining us today, Campbell.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
No, it's great. Next, we have Doug Engdahl, who's the CEO of the Axiom Exploration Group based in Saskatoon. They work with Royal on designing and executing our exploration programs here in Saskatchewan.
Yeah. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. And last but not least, we have Tom MacNeill, who's the president and CEO of 49 North Resources, one of our largest shareholders and a capital markets and junior resource company expert.
Morning, Andrew.
Morning. So, thanks for joining us today, and it should be a relatively lively and interesting chat about helium in general and the projects that we have here in Saskatchewan. They're exploration stage, getting ready to make the jump to development stage here in the next few months, and it's a story that needs to get told, and that's why we're here today, Gordon. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure, and I'm excited to learn about it. Most of us think about helium as changing my voice, but I know you've got more for that, so looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So Royal Helium, it started back in 2016 as a private company that I founded with a couple of other gentlemen, and the purpose of it was really to explore for the potential of primary helium production based in Saskatchewan. And based in Saskatchewan for a number of reasons. First and foremost is the production of helium that's gone on in Saskatchewan since the 1960s. Helium is formed from the decay of uranium and thorium, as some of us know, and Saskatchewan has some of the largest or highest uranium concentrations in the world. So that's why we figured this would be a pretty good jurisdiction to look. And what Saskatchewan also boasts, which you need in a helium company, is a strong oil and gas industry in the south where we're focused, because it implies the presence of basement structures and cap rock structures that can actually trap the helium gas at depth. And that's really how we got our start. And along the way, we've amassed a relatively significant land package, second largest in North America, and exceeded only by our partners or our competitors to the west, North American Helium, who are represented on this map in green. The map that we're highlighting here shows the relative land positions of the three main players in Saskatchewan. The green lands is North American Helium, a private company. We are the blue sections. That represents about 400,000 hectares. So whereas it looks small compared to North American, it is a very vast land package and very prospective. And also on the map is a smaller group called the Wild Group, who have production from a project to our immediate east. Production in this part of Saskatchewan is not new. As I mentioned, since the 1960s, helium wells have been on production here. Exploration for it and rapid development hadn't commenced until about 2017, about a year after we got started and North American Helium got started, as we set to staking as much of the prospective helium ground as we could, with a great deal of success. And since then, there's been a fair amount of publicity coming to the helium space, slowly at first, a little more quickly now. And a lot of that's based off of the demand for helium and the relative lack of supply. And it became a very interesting industry to get involved with as a junior resource company. And Tom, maybe I could jump you in here with the description of what got you interested in Royal Helium to become a 5% shareholder of the group.
Well, one of the things that we find appealing is it's in our backyard. And we know a lot about the geology of Saskatchewan and what we're blessed with. Saskatchewan's a very unique place. There's only 1 million people in the province, but we have just about every resource known to man, and some of them in very large quantities. So we started out about 150 years ago with Saskatchewan being the breadbasket to Canada and most of North America. We're a farming agricultural community. That morphed into a mining powerhouse when uranium was discovered in the province, and we have some of the highest, richest grade uranium deposits in the world. So we, in a sense, power a lot of the world. And that uranium, it's not surprising then, the decay of uranium and thorium create helium. So it's not surprising that we would have some of the largest contained resources of helium in the world. And it's very unique. One of the things that I find most appealing about helium in Saskatchewan, is it goes along with the province's mantra of providing things that the world needs that are useful. We power the world with uranium, we feed the world with potash, and we have some of the largest, best potash reserves in the world, bar none. And helium has the opportunity to be that resource that one has a very, very limited environmental footprint. The helium that Royal Helium specifically is developing is contained in nitrogen, which means that it really doesn't have any environmental impact whatsoever when you actually liberate this stuff, and it's good for humanity. Its use in technology and manufacturing is growing at an alarming rate. There's a supply shortage in the world right now, and we can provide out of our province something the world needs that's good for the world and has a very limited, if almost negligible, environmental impact. So large, big, scalable. 49 North, we like being there early. We see the size of it. 1 million acres is a massive land package, early stage start in this thing. And one of the appealing things, because of the way it's developed, much like the oil and gas industry, drilling wells can produce nearly immediate cash flow for Royal Helium. So we love all of those things. It's big.
That's very true. The demand for you mentioned, it's growing due to the industries that use it principally. They're generally growth industries, and in some cases very high growth industries. For example, the largest single user segment for helium in the world is MRI machines in healthcare. It's used in MRI machines as a superconductor and a coolant for the magnets contained within. It's a very large global industry in healthcare, and it doesn't exist without helium. It's not a situation where helium is used in this application because it's prevalent. It's in fact just the opposite. It's used because there is no replacement product for it. There's nothing else on the planet that can provide that service, and and that feature is true across multiple industries. Tom, you mentioned manufacturing, and this is maybe the single fastest growing segment of consumption for helium is high tech manufacturing. Principally in Asia and Asian markets, but it's used constantly in the production of microchips and semiconductors, fiber optic cables, LCD screens. It's used as a coolant in quantum computing. Its uses there are irreplaceable by any other substance. It's unique because helium is the only element on the periodic table that is completely inert and will not bind or react with anything else in the world. So, you use it as an atmospheric purge in certain manufacturing scenarios to keep impurities out of the manufacturing process. Since nothing will bind with it, it will actually sweep the atmosphere clean of pollutants or contaminants, and away you go. And that's not something that can be replaced with anything else. And maybe one of the more interesting industry segments that's been growing is rocketry. It's used there extensively as a coolant, as well as a purge gas, and the advancement of space exploration and space travel, both by NASA, by SpaceX, by all these other companies who are pushing the frontiers in this area. They are 100% reliant on helium to get the job done. It's not as if it can be replaced with nitrogen or hydrogen. It's just the opposite. It requires helium, and that's what's driving the global shortage. And that shortage has been what's driving prices in helium. So again, that's one of the reasons we jumped into it, and we structured our company to be an effective junior resource public company, one that can attract capital that we need to develop, and we've been quite successful in that. And Campbell, given your experience in capital markets, any commentary on how we've built this company?
Yeah, I mean, so far looks great. I realize it's still early days, but that's what's so exciting. You know, whenever you get these, you know, I'll call this a big macro trend coming. You know, these things can have a lot of legs to them. And, you know, I can remember back in the day, I coined the phrase electric metals before the rare earth boom and the lithium boom hit. And this has a lot of those similarities to it, you know, having a technology gas where, you know, people can really understand its usages is going to be massive. And, you know, it's very exciting because where there's mystery, there's margin. And when you bring up helium, not a lot of people get it. And, you know, when I saw Cormark's report, I was, you know, I got, you know, very selfish very quickly. You know, how can I get more involved in this story? And it is very exciting. And I would, you know, recommend everybody read Cormark's research report, because page 12, if that doesn't get you excited about this story, nothing will.
Yeah, thanks. And I should mention that and thank Cormark. They initiated coverage on Royal Helium just this Tuesday, which was great. They've been a leader in promoting the industry and the rapid development that needs to take place here. And you know, we're happy to forward that report on to anyone who needs it. They can reach out to me at any time. You know, and getting back to the corporate structure a little bit. I mean, we were lucky in that we found a strong shareholder right off the bat in Tom and 49 North. Management's taken a big position in this company. We own about 35% and can account for probably 15 to 20% through friends and family. And we've done that not because we're greedy. Well, yeah, because we're greedy. We love the story. We see the upside. And Campbell talks about the slide in the Cormark report, and what he's referring to really is the economics on helium production in Saskatchewan. They are exceptionally strong. And the beautiful thing about drilling helium wells is it's not new technology. It's existing oil and gas technology that's used in this business. But we're drilling for an inert and completely harmless gas. It provides a green industry alternative to traditional oil and gas workers who may or may not be working currently. Now, that in mind, though, I mean, we staked a very large tract of land in Saskatchewan based on geological exploration and based on well data that existed in the province. But you know, I might turn it over to Doug here to answer the question of how do you explore for something like this with a land package of our size.
I hope everyone can hear me here, but maybe a bit of an echo in the helicopter hangar I'm in. Can everybody hear me all right? Right. Yeah, you know, Tom actually hit a lot of geological points, stole a bit of the thunder, so I won't bore you with too much geology. But you know, helium is created through the decay or natural radioactive decay of thorium and uranium, and as most hydrocarbon gases, it's easily trapped within stratigraphic layers in the impermeable sedimentary layers. So you need a source, which is identified in the Precambrian rocks underlying the sedimentary features in Saskatchewan. You need a conduit, which are your faults or structures, and then you need a trap in order to concentrate it. Southern Saskatchewan is perfect for that. So yes, there's a large land package. So our approach to a large land package is just two primary factors. We start by systematically analyzing the regional basement structures that allow for the increased hydrothermal interaction, therefore heightened helium production. And then we combine that with the stratigraphic interpretation to identify the potential gas traps in the overlying sedimentary units. By overlying these two target features with other secondary features, we just increase the success of a successful drill program. I think that covers that. The only thing different between the drilling techniques for helium with your other natural gas is basically where you stop drilling to set casing. and that comes with experience in this relatively unknown commodity.
That's well described, Doug, and that's exactly what we've done. Of course, the combination of aeromagnetic surveys and seismic surveys, and overlaying the two to confirm that the target areas that we're going after both feature that basement movement and the availability for gas to escape the Precambrian basement, as well as the trapping mechanism over top. And that's exactly what we found at our Climax project. It is our most advanced project in the portfolio. The Climax project is where we intend to drill our first 5 wells, starting relatively quickly, we hope. It features about a 3,000 hectare closure on a small fraction of the land package, indicating the possibility for multiple wells. And so we're going to start with 3 to 5 and build out from there based on the geological results that we've received there. In drilling, you talk about drilling and setting casing, Doug. I mean, drilling helium wells is relatively new in Saskatchewan. It's existed since the 60s, as I mentioned, but globally, helium production is obtained by drilling conventional natural gas wells. Saskatchewan is different in this regard, in that our helium fields are nitrogen driven or CO2 driven. Ours specifically are nitrogen driven, and which is great, but it's drilled the exact same as a conventional natural gas well. It's a straight vertical well. It's not fancy drilling. It's simple and straightforward, and costs about $1.5 million to complete. And the formation we target is about a 25 to 2,700 meter depth. That's the Deadwood Formation, where helium is produced from in Saskatchewan, and we're excited to get going with that because we've seen how our neighbors have developed their fields, being North American Helium and the Wild Group, and the success that they've had. It's driven a very high level of confidence for our company as we move forward. The exploration model that we've followed is identical to theirs, and their success rate has been around 80% in drilling, and that's exactly what we expect. Given the amount of well bores that have gone into our specific part of the province that showed helium tests, the confidence level is high that the gas is there. It's just a function of actually drilling wells and capturing it in economic quantities, and that's really what's next on our list.
Andy, if you don't mind me jumping in here for a second, talking about the large land package again, looking at the offset well data and the success of other helium companies in the area, and then knowing what we know about the geophysics and the targeting methods, the amount of prime targets, geologically speaking, that we've seen so far in the Climax area is really exciting from a geology standpoint.
Yeah, thanks. And obviously we feel the same way here. So, I mean, that sets us in the path of how do we properly finance Royal Helium to exploit this potentially massive resource in Saskatchewan. And Tom, do you have any thoughts on how you would finance something along these lines?
Well, I think the company's done a great job so far, because we know there's helium in Saskatchewan. We know you're in the most prospective areas in existence, and maybe just a couple observations about the path you're taking. There has, as you pointed out earlier, Andrew, there has been helium production in Saskatchewan historically since the 1960s. There is currently helium production, but that production is just starting up again. So there's a reason for that. The Bureau of Land Management in the United States for a very long time, nearly 15 years, has been selling off their strategic supply in the US. So that created about 25% of the market. That has stopped. They've pretty much depleted those supplies. So right now you've got a perfect supply-demand scenario where demand is increasing exponentially, and the U.S. federal government is not there filling that void. Saskatchewan can fill that void. And from a capital markets perspective, this is a story that screams out for a partner to come drill a few wells to say, let's get started on something very, very big, because Saskatchewan really doesn't have any defined capital market. It will take external capital to define and develop this resource in Saskatchewan. When you look at what's happened with North American Helium, they've raised, by my count, something on the order of about $60 million in the past 18 months and are developing the resources. So start small, get producing some helium, and then go from there. And we, from 49 North's perspective, we like being very early in these stories. and especially when they're very, very big. And this is a world-class helium reservoir story. And the only thing I say is there's no hurry. Go slow. Start small. Drill a couple wells. Move on from there.
Yeah. And you touched on a very important point, Tom, with with why are people coming back to it? With the BLM pulling the sails off, that essentially eliminated 25% of global supply instantly. So it's become apparent that that North American supply has been curtailed in just a massive way. I mean, the other existing suppliers of helium globally are principally Russia and Qatar, where helium is stripped out of natural gas fields at LNG plants. In North America, there is no obvious replacement for the 25% stream that came out of the BLM, with the exception of Royal Helium and North American and a couple of the other small companies that are developing. So it's really on us to help fill the gap, specifically in North America. In talking with offtake partners, the large industrial gas companies in the world, there is a significant focus on securing North American supply. And I think you're right. I think Saskatchewan's a perfect fit for filling that hole in the supply-demand matrix. So, I mean, with that, it sets to raising a little bit of money and getting started. And Campbell, you've got a fair bit of experience in this. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think everything you're doing is certainly going in the right direction. Tom, everything you say, Tom, makes a ton of sense. I mean, this is a world-class resource, and from a capital markets point of view, and also from an investment point of view, when you have projects like this, you want to de-risk, but you don't want to dilute too much, so it's a real balance. And knowing that the probability of success is probably around 70 or 80%, you drill 3 wells and the capex is so low on these wells that there's really so much upside, once you have some success and once you can prove out that resource. But it is, really, really exciting in terms of the sort of risk reward behind this project, just because of, those two things. There's not going to be a ton of dilution to de-risk this asset.
Yeah. And thanks for that, Campbell. And I think the world really sort of twigged onto what we have here starting in mid 2020. Our stock chart took a bit of a step up, a bit of a re-rate in this time. The company itself is relatively well structured, in our opinion. I mean, there's 56 million shares outstanding. As a public company, we've only ever raised $1.3 million, and we've accomplished just an enormous amount with very limited capital. And that's a credit to our geological and our exploration team, principally, in our partners in the Axiom Group and SRC. But here we sit, ready to take the next step in field development, with a cap structure that lends itself well to doing that in a small scale fashion initially, and then a larger fashion down the road. I mean, the beautiful thing, like you touched on, Campbell, is the wells are so economic here with low capital that the field becomes self-funding relatively quickly in its development life cycle. 5 to 10 wells in, and the wells start paying for new wells in a short period of time, with a 6-month payback on capital here. It's able to scale quickly on its own. Now, that said, we've got a huge package of land to develop. Climax is just the start. Half of our land package is over in the southeast side of Saskatchewan, where we have 5 identified drill targets on our Vendog project, right there being highlighted. And we're excited to get over there as well. Some of the higher helium concentrations in Saskatchewan history are represented over in this part of the province, without having a historical helium industry located there. We look forward to getting there, but we are starting at Climax, and for relatively obvious reasons. When you look at this map, North American Helium in the green there have drilled in the range of 15 wells to date, and are constructing a permanent helium processing facility at their Battle Creek pool. Their wells extend very close to our land package. We expect our results to be the same as theirs, and from there we continue to grow. And essentially, in our view anyway, The upside is, well, there's no cap on it. I mean, with the amount of wells we can put into our land package here, with any modicum of success, this becomes a large company very, very quickly with limited requirements for external capital once we get started. It's really a matter of getting these first few wells online, drilling these seismic highs that we found at Climax, repeating that elsewhere, and then elsewhere and elsewhere and elsewhere. With 400,000 hectares available for development, we've got a long runway. Gordon, did you have any questions on Royal that I haven't touched on?
The thing that keeps coming back into my mind, Andrew, is with my experience in the mining world, offtakes can be a great way to some of the guys have been talking about not be dilutive. You talked about that. Any more color? And then the other one was, you've talked about who are the buyers of the product. I know Elon Musk is launching, it seems like every day, a rocket to build rings around the Earth, like some of the other planets in the solar system. I mean, what is there going to be a rapid increase on MRIs, or where do you see the growth on that? So really, two different questions there.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll answer them. I'll answer them in order. Offtakes are certainly something that is commonplace in the helium production industry. The industry is dominated on the sales side by major industrial gas companies such as Air Products, Air Liquide, Praxair, Linde, Matheson, Messer. These guys, major companies, and they produce very little, if any, helium themselves, but they are the biggest sellers of it. They are essentially wholesalers, and they're good partners to have. And so they will offtake with you right off the bat. Once you've drilled a well and proven the gas flow out of it, you can sign an offtake agreement with them next day. They are dying for North American production. They are looking for security and supply. The contracts that they sign are usually 3 to 5 year long-term contracts, which provide stability to the company selling. We look forward to talking with those groups again as we get wells online. In terms of demand growth, according to that topic, yes, I think healthcare is a demand growth area. I mean, with aging populations, the healthcare industry is not exactly slowing down. It is in fact speeding up, and so we believe there'll be growth there as well. But we don't think that that's what's going to be leading it. It's going to be things like strategic military use. It's rocketry. It's high tech manufacturing. It's these things. I mean, the anchors of demand being MRIs and lifting gases and welding and these applications aren't going to go away. They just go down in terms of a percentage of total market as the other markets claim more share. And what that means for us is the supply-demand gap that exists now is going to be exacerbated in the next number of years as these things continue to develop. And we don't see any other significant source of North American supply coming to market aside from companies like ours that are developing slowly and then quickly.
Great.
Yeah. So
exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. We're quite pleased with it. We're happy that you gave us the time today to tell the story in some detail and bring in some experts geologically and financial to ask questions and comment on how we built this company. We look forward to driving it to the next level quickly here. The project, frankly, warrants it. The world needs more helium. It's a unique industry that just has not had any attention on it for a long time. That time has come, and we're here now.
I'm seeing a couple of questions. What is the current price of helium, and when do you expect to drill a well? And then, when would you expect to have results for the market and news flow?
Sure. So the current price for helium is not something that's quoted anywhere because it's all contract pricing. It's the last market price, which was from 2018, is about $350 Canadian per MCF. all other evidence of price are anecdotal based on talking to buyers and sellers and what they're getting. And what we're hearing is that 350 is still a common number, but it's in US dollars now as opposed to Canadian. So the price has been moving upward. And on the spot market, if you needed to buy a tank of helium today, it would cost you well in excess of $500 an M to obtain it. So in terms of our field, how we plan to develop it, we want to have a drill in the ground in 2020. But we've got our targets picked. We've driven the survey stakes into the ground. The locations are set. We'll need to raise capital to do it, and then we will complete it very quickly. And the testing phase is relatively short. It's about a month-long process from start to finish. The drill itself takes about 12 days. The rest is the testing period, where you're looking at flow rates and gas percentages. And once you have that, you provide it to the processing suppliers, the facility suppliers, and they fine-tune the processor. It comes to site, and you turn the well on. And that from start to finish, from drill to commercial production, is about 6 months initially. The subsequent wells can be a bit faster because the gas stream should not be materially different from one location to the other within the same reservoir. So the lead time isn't as severe. But even with that 6 month process, once these things are online, you'll have your payback within 12 months of starting drilling. It's pretty significant. So if we're drilling in November, we expect to have initial results in December.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Looks like we have another question from one of our viewers. It looks like the company has such big margins. I don't know if you want to comment on that. I have not heard today you talking about margins. And again, it's the same old question. I've got a lot of mining buddies who like to leave the gold in the ground and wait for Frank Holmes is $5,000 an ounce or Bank of America at $3,500. Why would they sell it today at 19? So could you comment a little bit about the margin and how you see that playing?
Yeah, the margin is significant, but it's significant at virtually any price. The operating cost of these wells is exceedingly low once they're online. The capital cost as well is relatively low, but it dwarfs the operating cost. So in terms of how we're going to manage production, we expect the pressures to be so great coming out of these wells that we actually have to choke the wells back a bit, and that'll actually level off production, which allows for some more efficient processing and longer lived wells. So the wells and the type curves that we've built around what we expect are all based on helium wells that have been producing in Saskatchewan since the 60s. So we're very confident. I mean, they're wells that show useful lives in excess of 10 years with no real decline coming in until year 5, 6. So it's we don't intend on building a helium storage cavern like they have at the BLM. As we have helium, we intend to sell it. The margins certainly warrant that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one other question I see, he's referring to strategic positioning. Do you plan to start a poly generation plant or something simpler, cheaper?
Yeah. So this is something that we've been working on with our partners at the Saskatchewan Research Council, which is, if not the biggest, the second biggest geoconsultancy and engineering firm in the country. So what we have from our wells is principally nitrogen and helium, with a couple of other potential gas streams, be it neon, argon, CO2, one of these things in relatively small quantity. But what we've engaged our partners to do is scope out the economics of a poly generation facility. That's what we're calling it. Really what it is a larger gas facility that captures all the nitrogen, all the helium, all the CO2, all the neon, and marketing all of those, commercializing all of them. Our economic analysis on our project is based purely on the helium. But as a group, we spent some time thinking about how are we going to handle the nitrogen. It can be vented off without challenge. There's no economic or environmental impact to venting nitrogen. But it's a commodity that's in demand. I mean, nitrogen is used as fertilizer once condensed into urea, and that's a industry that exists now in Saskatchewan. So we took the approach of, if these other gas streams that come up with the helium can add return to this project, we'd be foolish not to look at capturing it. So we're going down that road with our engineering partners. We don't have the results yet on the initial scoping study, but it's underway.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Any closing remarks for any of our guests who appreciate your time today? Any last statements to leave with investors as they ponder what they should be buying in this? I was going to say, you're not exactly a year-end tax loss selling opportunity, but hopefully they're selling some losers and have some cash to redeploy. Any comments from any of the guests today before we call it a wrap?
Maybe I'll jump in. I was thinking when Andrew was talking, I was thinking a point we need to make. The Bureau of Land Management didn't stop selling helium because they woke up one day and decided they were going to do that. They essentially depleted that massive strategic resource that they had in the United States. So this demand supply imbalance is going to persist for a very long time. Saskatchewan has big things when they get developed in the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin. This will be big, and I think people need to pay attention to that. And one thing I like to hit home when I'm talking about helium in any jurisdiction is it's good for humanity, it's good for technology. The helium in Saskatchewan is produced with nitrogen, so there's really no negative impact from helium production in Saskatchewan. And it's something that's good for everything that's happening on this planet. So it's a very unique animal, and it's a resource development story that is one of the best things that you can invest in at this moment in time. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Gordon.
Great. Anybody else? Doug, you have any thoughts, or Campbell, any final? And then Andrew, we'll let you give your last piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I didn't realize all the usage of helium as a geologist. And I'm talking about MRIs and talking about a number of the different applications that it's used in. It's actually used in my industry in a geophysical surveying method. And we found it to be really hard to come by. And talking about the spot price, I can attest to a triple up in spot price over the last couple of years in smaller amounts. So it's opened my eyes up on the economic impact of helium. So it's a very interesting project we're proud to be part of.
Great. Campbell, any
what I would add, yes, certainly. I guess what I would add in closing is, if you're following the breadcrumbs of a great investment, a company like Cormark just doesn't issue a macro report on helium if they don't think anything's going to happen there. Secondly, they wouldn't issue a research report on Royal Helium if they thought there was a great deal of risk. And Cormark only deals with institutional clients. They're not a broad retail shop. So, there's really big money that's really starting to look in this sector. And, if I were a retail investor, which I am, that's what's getting me excited, knowing that there's a big institutional investment bank really getting behind this story, and not just the Royal Helium story, but the helium story in general. So I think you're going to see a lot more investment banks come on and get into this story in its early days. They're the only ones right now, and they're known as thought leaders, in investment banking and in research. So I think this is very, very early days, and it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Campbell, that reminds me, I was fortunate to be in the mining space in 2001. I'm agnostic, so I go where the money is, so to speak. And a good friend of mine, James Turk, had come up to my winery. We had a couple of bottles of wine, and he says, "Gordon, you've got to back up the truck in mining." I said, "I don't know anything about it." So that's when I started Streetwise, the Gold Report. But most people were thinking of gold and silver. But I remember somehow stumbling on uranium. And I think back in 2001 or 2, it was like $7 a pound. And I think it ran all the way up to about $135 a pound. And like helium, back in the early days, there was no, price history chart. It was buyer's markets, buyer and seller, and that's how you get the price. So, Campbell, your comment is making me think that, Andrew, I look forward to having you send me that macro. I didn't realize it was a macro as well, but taking a look at this, and I remember looking at your chart the other morning and thinking that it had a nice run up, pull back, and seems to be building a base. So I'm gonna take a further look. So again, appreciate that. So Andrew, any last comments before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I mean, I'll end with this. The helium industry itself is worth a look. In Royal Helium, we feel specifically is worth a hard look. Based on everything we've done to date, we think we're poised to be a real player in this industry over the relative short term. And if you're into big resource plays at early stages, there's really no better spot to look. Helium has been overlooked historically. Light is being shone on the industry now, and that's going to be to the benefit of everyone who takes a look here. And we see ourselves as being a major producer in a short period of time. We're ready to go. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. Campbell, Doug, Tom, thanks very much for your comments. Gord, thanks for the time, and thank you to StreetSmart Live.
Well, I appreciate it, and I couldn't end the show without saying thanks to Tom MacNeill, because I was first introduced to Tom years ago at a conference in Palm Springs, I think, and then we reconnected, and I was introduced to Amanika, which has been a great success, and then Tom introduced me, of course, to you. So Tom, really appreciate it, and I've got my hands full right now, so don't give any more ideas, but don't forget me when you're ready for that third one. So again, everybody, thanks for taking time. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to our next visit and update on StreetSmart Live.
Thank you.
Thank you.